there, you know, and the description was completely different, but they detained her for 24 hours, terrified her. Lena Smith said, we'll sue the police. We'll lose, but it's worth doing anyway. Now, Barbara Cyrus's dad ran a restaurant. She said we couldn't take Lena up on that offer because they'd ruin her restaurant, you know. So, but she was willing, she was doing things where they weren't going to win. And I think that if you want social change and social justice, you need to find ways to do that where you're making a statement. You're not just going for the court win. It's the process. So Lena Smith then led me to how are we going to work on this problem of no lawyers for so many community members. And I decided to do a study of lawyers who serve middle-income people. So what was most interesting, it did not start out to me, it didn't start out to be a study of solo and small firms. I just said, how are we going to address this? What other strategies? How are lawyers, what can we build on? But in a pretty thorough investigatory process that I detail in my article on this, couldn't find anyone who said that at least half of their clients were from the middle income group. And I was talking about quintiles, the census figures, that the top quintile is this, the bottom quintile is that. Let's just say, you know, these other three quintiles is the majority of your work. I excluded personal injury lawyers because they weren't as income sensitive, or they served a broader swath, and that's not as much what I was interested in, though they play an important role. Couldn't find anyone except solo or smalls who said, I sent out a bunch of letters, identified people, will you certify that half of your clientele? And then I did long interviews with each of these lawyers. And here's what I found. And this is kind of, you know, quick and dirty summaries. I found a lot more than just this, but I thought this is the most interesting for purposes of today. And also, and I wrote about it. So if you want more detail, but it's also, this is 2012, and technology is not really happening very much yet. These lawyers said the most critical skill for sustaining their practice was their ability to build and maintain relationships and trust. None of them at the time were doing it online. I am convinced by Conchita and other people that you can probably begin or establish trust online. And my business law attorneys are doing that online. But if you find a community, anyway, the most critical skills for sustaining practice are things we've talked about, the ability to ask for money, Chantel. You really need to be able to talk about money. Some cultures are better at that than others. We have a little bit of a Minnesota thing where you're not supposed to talk about money. I had to get over that, and once I learned how to do that, it's like asking for what you need. That was really important. The satisfactions are really deep, and solving a problem, making a difference, making some policy change was among them. Now, I just want to say most critical skill for sustaining practice in order of importance, no, that should say in order of frequency that they cited them. So importance, they didn't all say rank them. They said, the most people said number one, the next most people said number two. I need to change that word. I've made a lot of findings based on my qualitative interviews, but I'm saying my conclusions, take the leap. The advantages are continuing in substantial relationships with clients. Chantel talked about customer service. I talk about lawyer-client relationship. That's part of why I left legal aid. That's part of why I left the city. That is the fun part. If you find you're helping clients really reward small practice is the place to go, because it's up to you and you can shape those relationships the way you want. But you're going to have to talk about money with them too. But you know what? That's humbling. I had a therapist at the time. She said, "Ann, you're not Jesus. You need food and an apartment also." You know, I mean, it's like, how did I get over this? I had to like, okay, I need something too. That's a kind of scary place to be, but it made the relationships so real. So I also think the idea of service hubs and community connections, my idea of can we match some small practice lawyers with part-time work at key times, because you might find a group that's willing to pay someone for work part-time that isn't willing to give you a bunch of cash. Community activists and organizations, they're all over. We need to connect with them. If you don't have a connection with some kind of community groups, you're not going to go real far, I don't think, in a practice. There are practical things like making loan forgiveness available, which I have an analysis of the rules in another one of my pieces. It would take some change to make that possible. I think that would make a big difference. My last word is we need not reforming old institutions. Let's create new ones. I think that's the idea here. I'm amazed at the people you've brought together, Yolanda and others, to we want incorporation of, for me, women's perspectives, but the perspectives of all people, of diverse people, into our work. We don't just want to be included. You know, that means you're going to be on every committee if they want to be inclusive. But let's just take it over. So change the culture. Don't just influence it and do the change you want to see. That's somebody else's. Thank you. Okay. Appreciate it. I'm going to take this out and give, and Yolanda, you can tell. And these slides will be posted, right?
Yes.
And something about, I have a couple of articles that I'd like to link to